In this video, we're going to show you how to install the lower control arm on your Volvo XC90 located in the front suspension. Using our 19mm socket, we're going to loosen and remove our lug nuts. Let's go remove our wheel and set it aside. With the vehicle raised and supported, we want to go ahead and remove the lower splash shield. There are a total of 6 10mm bolts around the perimeter. Loosen and remove those. Now we'll go ahead and remove the nut on our ball joint here to the control arm. This is a 21mm. We did spray it down with some rust penetrant. Let's go ahead and see if we can loosen and remove this nut. On the rear portion of our control arm, we have a vertical bolt right here that goes through the back end of the control arm. And we are going to use our 18mm socket here. There's a nut on the top side. Okay, remove that nut. Now on the front section, we have 2 bolts right here. We're going to use our swivel socket set here for this. And that is going to be 15mm. You can leave those in there. They did unbolt from the leading edge or front portion of the control arm. And on the outside here, we want to go ahead and remove the axle bolt using our 13mm socket. Loosen and remove that. Now ideally what you want to do is this axle inside our wheel hub should be free floating. So you reach around, you can grab that CB axle and try and pull that out. And ours is stuck. If yours is stuck, go ahead and spray this down with some rust penetrant. Let that soak up inside there. Now we're going to use a large brass punch on the inside. You don't want to use anything that's going to damage the threads on the axle shaft end. You should feel the axle starting to move, and then you can come around to the back side and you should be able to slide that axle back in. There it is. So now that we know that our axle is free floating here, that's going to allow us to go ahead and pull our whole assembly outward, dislodging the control arm from the chassis of the vehicle, and then we can pop the lower ball joint. You can grab that pry bar. Make sure that our axle is far enough in. Now there's a possibility when we move this whole assembly out, that axle can actually drop out a little bit. Not that big of an issue. We just want to make sure that we have that room that we need to push this assembly. All right, our axle just popped out. And there we go. Now we have our ball joint tool here. All right, now that we get that to pop off, go ahead and set that control arm aside. Now at this point here, we have our axle supported way up top We have a securing strap holding it up to the strut spring, and we have pulled out our knuckle assembly out and away from the vehicle. It's going to allow us to go ahead and get our control arm up and in, at least get the back portion lined up and in here. Let's get our bolt up and in. And I'm going to go ahead and get that nut started on the top, just a few threads. There we go. Bring this over. Now we're just going to get our forward bolts started. We want to make sure that we have some flexibility and some movement, so keep all those bolts loose. We do want to go ahead and separate our ABS wire from these two connection points here. Now you never want to grab the wire and just pull it out. You can damage the wire. Use 2 fingers, one on each side, and you can try and roll this out like so. And here do the same, just use 2 fingers and you can kind of roll that out. Here it is. Now we have to unbolt our strut. There's 2 bolts, one on the top here and one down below. These are 21 millimeter nuts, and the bolt head itself is an 18. I'm gonna go ahead and hold this and loosen this nut. I'm gonna leave the bolt in place. Do the same for the lower. Spray down the strut and the knuckle with some rust penetrant, let that soak in for a little bit. Now what we're going to do next is we need to remove these 2 bolts here holding our knuckle to the strut assembly. Before you do that, you need to be aware that there's nothing else holding this assembly besides your outer tie rod assembly. So when we do this and we remove these bolts, you have to grab the whole knuckle with the brakes. We're going to pull it away, insert our CV axle into the wheel hub, and then lower the knuckle onto the ball joint. Gonna remove our lower, pull out that upper bolt. Get that lower ball joint installed. Bring our axle around. Get our lower knuckle bolt lined up. Work that in. Get that axle lined up, push in that upper. Install the nuts on our strut bolts. Now what we want to do is torque these to 77 foot-pounds plus 90 degrees. Now we have to tighten these an additional 90 degrees. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a marker here, and it just happens to be that the crown of our nut right here is right up roughly about 12 o'clock. And we're going to turn this till it is facing towards the inner part of the vehicle. And you may have to use your wrench here to hold that. I'm going to use a breaker bar Go just a little more. Okay, so we're at our 90 degrees. So now we're going to go ahead and do the same for the bottom. Let's snug down the rear control arm bolt. Let's now torque it down to 47 foot-pounds plus an additional 180 degrees. Now we have to continue to tighten this 180 degrees. I'm going to take a Sharpie marker, mark one of the crowns on the bolt, and we're going to tighten this until it is on the other side. Right there. It'll be 180 degrees. I'm going to use my breaker bar to do so, get some leverage out of this. Just a tiny bit more. There it is. Let's go ahead and tighten the forward control arm bolts. Let's snug down our forward bolts. Let's torque these down to 59 foot-pounds. Install the ball joint nut. Let's get and torque it down to 74 foot-pounds. Okay, install the cover. I'm going to get one forward bolt in and one rear bolt. That'll hold everything up in place while we install the other ones. And once we get all these in, we're just going to go ahead and snug them down. Going to install the axle bolt. We want to snug that down, and then we're going to torque it to 26 foot-pounds. Now you can use a small pry bar or a flathead screwdriver, put it between the caliper bracket and the brake rotor cooling fin, and then go ahead and torque this down to 26 foot-pounds. Now I'm going to use a marker, and I'm going to mark this here. Need to go ahead and crank this 90 degrees so it's a quarter turn. It's going to come around right to that mark there. All right, go ahead and remove that screwdriver or your pry tool. Grab your wheel. Let's go ahead and line this up. Let's go ahead and get all of our lug nuts started first. And then we'll come on back and snug them down. Let's go ahead and torque them down. Let's now go ahead and torque down our lug nuts to 103 foot-pounds. When doing this here, it's best to do it in a crisscross or star pattern.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.